Morning, everyone. Nice to be here, and thank you for coming here for this conference on a rainy, cold Tuesday morning. Very glad to be in a conference with actual people for once after a long time. So pardon me if I'm a little bit like stuttering here and there because haven't seen so many people for a long time. So let me quickly start with something, a picture. How many of you know this gentleman that I'm showing here? No? Yeah. Great. I'm sure many of you do, but I don't see any hands, but it's okay. Yeah, it's still a slow morning. So this gentleman is Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and he invented the web, right? So the web basically is the internet that we know of today, but actually the internet existed before the web, right? But for those of you who were there using that, they were using things like Archie, Gopher, even FTP at that point in time. Really text-based stuff, not a lot of excitement. Only like certain academics and enthusiasts would be using the internet then. Then came the web, and after the web, things sort of exploded, and people started using it. There was a huge spike of interest in commercial adoption. Everybody started jumping on the bandwagon when Netscape started building up the Netscape browser. Then things gotten heated up and so on and so forth. And that sort of gave rise to the first dot-com boom in the late 1990s and early 2000s. In fact, in '99, I quit NCB, the predecessor to GovTech today, to do my first startup, right? So I was part of that big hype as well. Today, of course, everybody knows what the web is. Nobody really don't know what it is. And in many ways, this sort of parallels what's happening with this massive popularity of generative AI. And as Mike mentioned early on, the AI actually has been around for quite a long time, even before the internet, right? But there has been ups and downs. Again, even generative AI has been around for a few years and sort of simmering in the background since Transformers arrived on the scene. And there has some excitement when things like DALL-E, GPT came out, and this image that's been generated by Mid-Journey, actually, you'll be surprised. You would thought, for some of you who recognize this, you might think, this is a famous astronaut riding a horse that's been shown by DALL-E, but I actually used Mid-Journey to create it. So things have been around, but things really exploded sometime last November, right? It was very clear to me when ChatGPT came out, and suddenly, there was an explosion of usage. Everyone started talking about ChatGPT, right? My wife started asking me, hey, you know what this thing called ChatGPT? It's like, okay. Yeah, I was just playing with APIs around it a few months ago, and then suddenly everybody is talking about it, right? So that was really massive adoption by everyday people and also by companies. Companies started using it, people started paying attention, and big money started flowing around, right? You probably have heard early this year, Microsoft invested about $10 billion into OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT. And subsequently, all tech companies started sprouting. And big tech companies, even though as they're laying off people, started investing so much heavily into it. Like Meta essentially abandoned the metaverse to join in AI again, right? So massive adoption. But we also know what happened to the dot-com boom at one point in time, right? So again, anyone seen this pet socket? This is actually from pets.com. It was pretty popular at one point in time. And in Singapore as well, I think there were many dot-com companies. There were companies like Excite.com, eToys.com, Flus.com, Boo.com. I guess the reason for it being called a dot-com boom has a reason. Everything is not .com. I was just joking with Mike early on that maybe now it's supposed to be called a .com boom, right? A .ai boom, right? Because all companies are not called .ai. Well, these companies had their fair share of valuation and fair share of big money coming in at that point in time. Many actually got listed, but a lot of these companies don't exist today, yeah, because as the cycle went up, it went down. There was a big crash as well, right? In the early 2000s, and many companies faltered and died. But despite all of these things, actually, there were many successful companies that came about as well. Right? Some of the bigger companies that we know today actually started during the dot-com boom. So while there was like doom and gloom at that period where companies started dying off, everyone was like, let's get off this internet thing. Right? But actually, a lot of good was started at that point in time. If you look at this list here that I just quickly put up, like half the FANG companies, or MANG companies, you call them now, actually started during the dot-com boom. Right? Apple, of course, started way before, and Meta started right after. But all of that were built. All the value was actually built around there. So this for me is very important as we look at the parallels, right? And we are right in the middle of this massive AI boom. If we want to be successful, actually we need to not only have the technology, but we must also bring value to our users. And of course, we need to have a sustainable model. Like if we build things, we need to say, look, this is not just cool, this is not just amazing, but this needs to actually bring value for our users. And you need to have a plan. You need to have a proper plan to say, how do you actually bring the tools, bring the technology for the long run? Yeah. So that's actually my main message. But I want to now share how we at GovTech, which our mission is to engineer a digital government, how we are going to use AI, and we're going to use AI to actually bring about our mission. I'm just going to talk about two small examples quickly, and Jason, who is going to speak after me, is going to go in depth into some of them. But I want to also contrast two use cases that I'm going to talk about. First, it's really a little bit of old school AI, right? If we call it. It's kind of funny because it wasn't so old school just a couple of years ago, but now it's like a bit of a traditional. Somebody has even told me that this is traditional AI. It's like, okay, that's kind of funny. And the other one is going to talk a little bit more about the new generative AI, right? So let me get into the first use case. Singapore, as you know, is a small country. We import like 90% of our food from all around the world. And we can really see how critical this becomes during the recent pandemic, when Malaysia decided to just basically stop exporting chicken to us. We went to a chicken frenzy buying, right? And it was a bit scary, but at the same time, come to a realization, actually, we really need to up our game in terms of food. And so the Singapore Food Agency launched a 30 by 30 strategy. Basically, the plan was to produce 30% of our nation's nutritional needs locally and sustainably by the year 2030. And all of these includes things like, these include things like fish farming. Okay. And a key part of fish farming is really about producing feed. You keep livestock, you need to feed the livestock. So it's also about producing quality fish feed. And for breeding fish, you basically come from fish larvae, which actually need to have good quality zooplankton. And the kind that we're talking about here is called rotifers. And as we ramp up production and set up newer farms, we do need to also ramp up the production of such feed, such zooplankton. And of course, scalability becomes an issue and so on. So it's a chain, right? So we want to have food on the table, we need to produce livestock, and we need to produce feed for the livestock. But part of producing quality fish feed is really to figure out how this zooplankton can be kept healthy, right? So this can be quite an expensive and laborious task. So on a daily basis, somebody really needs to go out to the culture, extract some samples, put in a petri dish, look under the microscope, and literally count how many of these rotifers are still alive, how many are not rotifers, how many have died, and the other kind of debris within the zooplankton. So it's very laborious, and we were told that it takes about 40 minutes of a well-trained person to actually do this task. Right? Doesn't seem like a lot to you, but imagine you are that person now staring at a microscope 40 minutes, counting how many rotifers it does. Right? Obviously, not something that you will relish doing every single day. So in GovTech, we went in and we spoke with our users, and we talked about how we can help to improve this process. So we trained an AI model to help in this task, and we managed to reduce it to less than a minute for somebody with no training and no special equipment. I'm going to show you a video of how somebody does this. So you take this phone, snap a picture, you get into a Telegram, you talk to a bot, you upload the photo, it queries the AI model, and it will show you the results. Okay, so literally this is what the people in the field now can do. So imagine if I need to set up a lab, have trained people staring into microscopes in order to count rotifers in the past. It's hardly scalable because we need to do training, we need to do a lot of other things, provide expensive equipment, we need to give grants for those, and so on and so forth. Now with just a phone, your phone, Telegram, which a lot of people have, you subscribe to a bot, and you can do the job within less than a minute, right? No more staring 40 minutes into a microscope. So this is actually one of the examples that I wanted to show, like how AI can actually bring improvements, not directly that you can see, but indirectly to bring real value in the real world, right? Because nothing is much more important than bringing food to the table, right? As all Singaporeans know. So the next use case I want to talk about is very much closer to heart, right? I've been a software engineer for close to 30 years, and of course we always try to discover new tools, and as software engineers, we always want to dog food our products, right? And figure out how we can make better use of the new technology. In this case, it is AI, right? And how do we use AI as a code assistant to help us to become better software engineers? So let me introduce today Ghost, which is an AI code assistant. A little bit different from what SMS Daniel talked about this morning, which is Pair. So this actually runs on your laptop. And this is one of the experiments we are running. So Ghost is experimental. This runs on your laptop. And this code assistant does not just go to one model. It can, in fact, go to multiple models. You can access OpenAI, you can access Azure OpenAI, can access Google Palm through Vertex AI. You can potentially access any model, actually. It runs all on your laptop. It can help to do the normal stuff like generating code, creating test cases, figuring out bugs, and even be a tutor to teach you how to code. Right? Let me quickly show you a demo without talking too much about it. So this is Ghost. I ask it what it is, just to show you guys. And here it reads a piece of code from a file because it runs on your laptop and it can access the file system. And then afterwards, I try to ask it what it is. I mean, this is quite common, right? Because we often receive code that somebody else generated. It's like, I have no idea what this does. So I ask Ghost, hey, tell me what this is. And then afterwards, I say, look, I need test cases. There are no test cases for this guy. So I ask it to generate test cases for me. Okay, done. It's like, okay, it doesn't perform as well as I think it is. Can you write something better for me? So it does that, right? So obviously, how good is it? I think it's probably subjective, and so depends on the use case that you have. But I think it's pretty interesting because, anecdotally, from my perspective, as I use it daily to write code, I do find myself at occasions, getting stuck somewhere, and I say, hey, why don't I just turn here and find out what it is, and helps me to unblock things. So it is actually pretty useful. Let me show you a few more other things that what Ghost can do. So you can also access relational databases. Here, I took a sample database from the internet, and that's why you see a lot of like mock data, right? So I gave it a DBURI, and now it can access the database. I send it some queries, it will query the database, and it will tell me some information on that. Basically, what's happening behind the scene, it actually writes SQL code for you, and it will query the database. And this runs on your laptop. Again, so if you have a local database, you can query that. It has a database somewhere else, you can do that as well. You can also use it to analyze CSV files. Here, I took the HDB resale price flat data from data.gov.sg, and I tried to analyze it. So I say, ask it first, how many rows are there in this file? It will tell you the information, but this is very basic. I can ask it how many resale flats were sold in 2017. Ask it what's the average price, and it will do some calculations for me, and can even do a little bit more high-level stuff, and can say, how does it compare with 2022, and then you do the calculations and do a comparison and give you an analysis. You can probably do a lot more. I haven't really explored it. For those of you who know how some of these things work, basically, essentially, this overlays pandas, right? The pandas library. One last sample here. So look at some of the non-coding examples. As a software engineer, we don't just deal with code every day. Sometimes we are asked to do other things, like, for example, interviewing people and reviewing resumes. So say somebody, your manager say, hey, here's the resume. Can you review it? Tell me whether this guy is good or not, and so on. So you can ask Ghost to analyze the resume. So I can't talk about anybody else, so I just talk about myself, right? So you basically use it to read a CV from PDF, and then you can do some analysis. You can ask Ghost and whatever LLM is backing it up to do a quick one, and say, hey, you know what? I don't know what this guy looks like, right? So you can ask it to do a search on the internet and say, look, just one picture? No. Give me more pictures. So you give you more pictures. Right. But besides just that, you can also use it to, say, ask it to read images. So I went to a clinic some time back. I had flu. I took a picture of the receipt here. I read it. It can tell me information about the receipt. I spent $41 for this visit, and it tells me what kind of medicine I got from it. And I don't know what I'm eating. So the doctor tells me this flu medicine, and this is paracetamol. Sorry. Okay, but it doesn't say that so I do a search on it, and this searches the internet, and it will retrieve the information and tell me more about it, right? So these are a little bit of frivolous examples that I'm giving here because, but I would say on a day-to-day basis, software engineers have many things to do, right? It's just not about writing code. So Ghost is here to provide you a wide variety of things. As I said, it can connect to multiple LLM models today. So right now, it goes to these three big ones, but actually, it can do a lot more. And it can even go to, say, a private one. Let's say you're running this within your data center. You can have a model within your data center, or in the case of the public service, you can run it on GCC, and you can query the model. Right? And you can be able to do that as well. But obviously today, the most powerful models are the ones that are the bigger ones. And if you run it on a cloud somewhere on your own instance, you might not be as good. But that situation changes every day. And sooner or later, I expect some will be good enough for you to do a lot of these things. But besides that, I think there's also an ambition to say, can I run this entirely on my laptop? Which means that even the model is on the laptop. Right? And I think this is potentially possible sometime in the future. Right now, I think the performance is not really there because you run it, then you can't do anything else, which is not really the point. But after a while, I think some of these things will be possible. Okay, so like I said, in these two examples, I was trying to show one on one extreme, which is the real value to the real world, and not really the other extreme, but really real value as well, but to people like us, right? Software engineers, developers, and honestly, when we first tried it, we don't really know the end result, right? We don't know whether you'll be successful or we will be a bust. But we always need to try, because if we don't experiment, if we don't try new things, we would know. And in fact, in GovTech, we created an entire new platform for exploring AI. We call it Launchpad, and Jason will go deeper into it later. So let me just wrap up my session for now by saying, while I showed you technology and I talk about technology, it's really not about technology all the time. In fact, it's not really about technology most of the time. It's always about people. It's always about people like you, software engineers, AI engineers, data scientists, product managers, people who would make AI successful and deliver value for our users, for our customers. In GovTech, we strive to create this culture of innovation and experimentation, and we also encourage you to do the same. So I wish you have a great day of learning and connecting with people. Thank you.